They said the old stone mansion was empty. But the night Logan Hart opened the hidden room beneath it, someone else was already standing inside. Someone who whispered his father's name like a threat. Gage didn't wait for permission. The old K9 launched first, choosing the truth over fear long before Logan did. Most people think a dog protects you from danger. But sometimes he protects you from the lie you've been living.
It's cold.
The road to the Waterfall Ridge was narrow, cracked, and mostly forgotten by anyone who didn't grow up in this corner of Missouri. Logan Hart eased his old pickup to a stop at the edge of the stone drive, the engine ticking as it cooled in the cold February air. He stepped out slowly, boots sinking into gravel that had not been disturbed in decades. The mansion towered above him, built of pale riverstone hauled up from the valley long before he was born. Perched on a cliff overlooking a roaring waterfall, it looked like a relic from a century that refused to leave. The county had listed it as abandoned, condemned, a financial dead end. 50 cents. That was the final auction price. And Logan, a Marine with more scars than savings, had taken it. He told himself it was for the quiet, for the distance, for the chance to breathe again without walls closing in. But Gage did not move. The German shepherd stood rigid beside the truck. His ears were angled back, his body low, his gaze fixed on the mansion, as if reading something Logan could not. "You coming or what?" Logan kept his voice soft, knowing tone mattered more than words for a dog like this. Gage stepped back. Just one step. Not fear. Calculation. The same deliberate hesitation he'd shown outside a compound in Fallujah. The night Gage's instincts saved Logan from stepping onto a buried trigger line. A cold pinch tightened at Logan's ribs. He crouched beside him, resting a hand on the thick fur between the dog's shoulders. "What is it, buddy?" Gage's breath trembled at the end, nose twitching towards the front doors. Logan followed his gaze. 2 oak slabs, gray with age, framed in iron that looked too ornate for anything in this town. He approached, boots creaking across wood so dry it splintered. He slid the brass key from the envelope the clerk had given him, the same clerk who'd offered a smile too tight, too polite, like someone handing over a secret they didn't want to name. The key turned too easily. The door opened without effort. Inside, the air was dry, still, unsettlingly intact. Furniture sat where someone had left it. Drapes hung in perfect folds.
What is
Dust
it, boy?
coated everything, but not enough to mark decades. It felt paused, not abandoned. Gage stayed on the threshold. Logan scanned the foyer. A curved staircase swept upward, its banister gleaming faintly beneath a layer of dust that seemed disturbed by recent touch. A fireplace sat cold but clean. Wood stacked beside it had clearly been placed with care, ends trimmed evenly. Someone lived here. Not long ago. Logan adjusted the strap on his duffel. Then he heard it. A thump. Soft. Upstairs. He froze. Breath shallow. Eyes narrowing. Gage stiffened outside, body tensing like a bowstring. Then came another sound. A slow shift of weight across old wood. Logan lifted his chin towards the stairs, forcing calm into his voice. Probably an animal, house this old. But Gage had already lowered himself, muscles coiled, eyes locked on the landing. He let out a low, controlled growl. Not warning? Fact. Logan stepped back to the porch. "Come on, partner." Gage hesitated one heartbeat, then moved forward. His paws crossed the threshold, but he kept low, nose sweeping the floor, breath sharp and measured. He knew this pattern. Clear the entry. Mark exits. Track scent. He paused at the foot of the staircase, head angled upward. Logan tightened his grip on the flashlight tucked at his belt. He took a step up. 1, 2. The air shifted. A cold draft slipped down the stairs, but there were no open windows. No broken panes. Nothing to suggest wind should move this way. Then, somewhere above, wood whispered again. Logan froze mid-step. Gage pressed against his leg, hackles rising, but the sound changed, became softer, closer. A sigh. Human. Barely there, but unmistakable. Logan's pulse kicked. He swept the flashlight upward. The beam caught a flash of movement at the top landing, a shadow sliding back out of view. He didn't breathe for a moment. Then Gage's nose snapped toward the right wall, not the stairs. He pawed once, sharply at the plaster. Logan frowned, sweeping the light across it. No cracks, no molding, no seams, nothing that should have drawn the dog's attention.
Under the tree roots.
He knelt, pressing his fingers along the baseboard. Cold, too cold, and the paint felt smoother than the wall beside it, as if it had been applied recently. He knocked gently. Hollow. Every muscle in his body tightened. Someone had built a hidden space here, someone who never meant it to be found. And above them, the floorboards groaned again. Slow. Purposeful. Gage's growl deepened into something Logan had rarely heard in all their years of deployments. Not alarm, not fear. Recognition. Logan whispered, barely audible. We're not alone.
Here.
The door slammed upstairs, hard, final. Dust drifted down the stairwell like falling ash. Logan straightened slowly, flashlight shaking just once in his hand before he steadied it. Gage stepped half a pace in front of him, shoulders squared, tail stiff, ready to meet whatever was coming. And in that dim foyer of a mansion bought for 50 cents, perched above a roaring waterfall, Logan felt the truth settle heavy in his chest. He hadn't purchased a quiet refuge. He'd walked into someone else's unfinished story. And Gage had sensed it before he ever turned the key. The first morning inside, the stone mansion broke grey and heavy, the kind of light that never quite committed to day. Logan brewed coffee on the old gas stove, listening to the flame catch. With a cough, the house exhaled cold air from every corner, as if it had lungs of its own. Gage sat in the doorway of the foyer, staring up the staircase again. His ears twitched at sounds Logan couldn't hear. His body was angled forward, weight distributed like he was ready to spring. "You can relax," Logan muttered, but the words sounded thin. He walked from room to room, pushing open doors swollen by moisture.
Oof.
A dining table covered in dusty linens. A study lined with empty shelves except for a single overturned picture frame. A bedroom with a mattress still on its rusted springs. The place looked abandoned, yet lived in, and the contradiction pressed against him like a hand on his spine. He pulled sheets from the furniture, stirring dust into drifting silver clouds. For a few minutes, his mind went quiet. Routine did that for him. Order replaced noise. Even here, in a house that felt wrong in ways he couldn't name. A sudden thump snapped his attention back. Gage had moved. Fast. The dog stood at the base of the staircase again, nose lifted, body stiff. His growl was low, a slow rumble building like distant thunder. Logan's pulse spiked. "All right, what now?" He crossed the foyer, stepping beside the dog. The staircase stood silent, dust pooling at the edges. No footprints except his own. No sign of movement. But Gage's breathing had changed.
What is it, boy?
Shorter, sharper. Logan felt the old instinct rise in him, the one that had kept him alive overseas. Trust the dog. Always trust the dog. He looked down at Gage, and a flicker of memory rose uninvited. A desert road. Gage freezing mid-step. Logan's hand reaching out just as the earth erupted behind them, an IED triggered by weight he never placed, thanks to the same rigid stance Gage held now. The echo of that blast still lived behind his ribs. Some wounds never left, they just changed shape. He forced himself to breathe slowly. This is a house, not a war zone. But Gage didn't agree. The dog crept towards the left hallway where blank wallpaper stretched under low beams. He paused at a section of wall that held nothing but faded paint. Then he stared at it, unblinking. Logan approached. "What is it?" No response. Just that same unsettling stillness. He touched the wall. Cold, unnaturally cold for a house this sealed. He shifted his fingers, pressing gently until something clicked inside him. Not physically, but mentally. A recognition. This was too smooth, too even. No cracks, no peeling, no age. Someone had patched it recently. But why patch a wall in a house no one paid taxes on for 30 years? Before he could trace the line of thought further, a sudden slam echoed from upstairs. Not loud, not enough to be a door, more like a window closing itself. Logan's head snapped up. Gage lunged to the foot of the stairs, barking once, sharp enough to bounce off the stone. Logan froze. The sound had come from the same direction as last night's footsteps. A part of him hoped it was the wind. Another part remembered the warmth of breath behind desert walls and the feeling that no one should be there. But someone was. He climbed 3 steps. The old wood groaned beneath him. Then something unexpected broke the silence. A soft metallic clink behind him, near the kitchen. He spun. Gage was still at the staircase, so the noise wasn't the dog. Logan moved toward the kitchen, every step measured. He flicked on the flashlight again, even though daylight seeped through the shutters. The sound
Gage
came
found
again,
the secret room under
a
the
slow
tree roots.
tap, metal on ceramic. He approached the counter. The mug he had set there was now slightly shifted, no longer aligned with its ring of dust. Not a fall, not a bump, a movement. Someone had touched it. Recently. His chest tightened. Gage trotted in, nose working hard. He sniffed the mug, then lifted his head to the window above the sink. The latch was unlocked. Logan knew he had locked it. He remembered the click. He remembered checking it twice. The cold in the kitchen suddenly felt deeper. He stepped back, gripping the edge of the counter. He didn't like the sensation crawling up his spine. He didn't like the way Gage pressed against his leg as if bracing him. "All right," he said quietly. "Enough guessing." He walked to the dining room, pulling open a large cabinet built into the wall. Inside, old plates sat in neat stacks. Too neat. No mouse activity, no dust on the rims. Someone had kept this place clean until not long ago. Logan's breath fogged in front of him. It shouldn't be cold enough for that. Gage's nails clicked against the floor as he moved back into the hallway. Logan followed until they reached the blank stretch of wall again. This time the dog lifted a paw and touched the baseboard gently, then backed up 2 steps, eyes locked on Logan. Not warning, instruction. Logan knelt, ran his hand along the seam where wall met floor. Then he felt it, a faint vibration, as if something small moved behind the plaster. He pulled his hand away quickly. What the hell? Gage's ears flattened. He let out a single huff of air through his nose, the same sound he made when he sensed explosives buried deep enough to miss with equipment. The room tightened around them. Logan didn't speak. He didn't have to. He felt the same conclusion forming in both of them. This house wasn't abandoned. It was interrupted. Someone had left in a hurry without erasing their work completely. He stood, turning in a slow circle, scanning the silent rooms. Gage stepped beside him, shoulder touching his leg with steady pressure, a grounding weight. Logan rested a hand on the dog's back. "You saved my life 12 times," he whispered. "Guess we're not done." He looked toward the hidden cold spot on the wall. Whatever history lived here, whatever had been buried in this house, the official records didn't come close to telling the truth. And for the first time since buying the place, Logan felt something heavier than unease. He felt watched. By late afternoon, the air inside the house felt heavier, as if the walls themselves were waiting for something to happen. Logan moved along the back hallway with a rag over his shoulder, trying to convince himself this was just another old house with creaks and cold spots. But the feeling clung to him like a second skin. He paused to scrape peeling wallpaper near a warped doorway when Gage's nails clicked sharply behind him. The dog had gone rigid. His eyes locked on the far end of the hall. "What is it now?" Logan murmured without turning. But then Gage launched forward. No hesitation, no sound, just pure instinct. He slammed his paws into the flat section of wall where the paint looked slightly newer. Dust exploded outward as his claws tore at the baseboard. It was the same wall he had stood before earlier, the one that felt just a little too perfect. Gage. "Hey, slow down." But the shepherd ignored him. His growl vibrated through the narrow hallway, low and determined. Each strike of his paws was deliberate, purposeful, not frantic. He was saying something the only way he could. Logan dropped the rag and knelt beside him. All right, let me see." When he touched the spot Gage had clawed, the texture was wrong. The surface flexed slightly under pressure. Not old plaster, not wood. Something thinner, something meant to hide. Logan pressed harder. A faint tapping echoed behind the wall. Hollow. Every muscle in his body tightened. He looked at Gage, who stepped back just enough to give him space, staring with that fierce, intelligent stillness Marines had learned to trust on patrol. "You found something, didn't you?" Gage thumped his tail once, but not in joy, in confirmation. Logan retrieved a multi-tool from his pocket and slid the edge beneath a raised seam in the molding. With a firm twist, the panel cracked. More dust fell. Another twist and a long vertical line appeared, no thicker than a thread. A hidden door. He exhaled slowly. Whoever built this didn't expect anyone to find it without knowing exactly where to look. He widened the gap, bracing his boots on the old boards, forcing the seam open. The panel groaned as it gave way, swinging inward just enough to reveal darkness swallowing the space beyond. Cold air rushed out, smelling faintly of metal and old paper. Logan flicked on his flashlight. The beam cut into a narrow passage hardly wide enough for one man to pass. At the end of it, wooden steps descended steeply into blackness. "You've got to be kidding me." Gage leaned forward instantly, nose searching the draft from below. His tail stiffened, ears pinned forward. He wanted to go first. "Not happening, buddy," Logan whispered. "I'll take point." He stepped into the opening, feeling the temperature drop around him. The wood beneath his boots creaked but held. Gage followed close, body brushing Logan's leg as if anchoring him. Halfway down, the air shifted again. Not colder, denser. A feeling he recognized from deployment tunnels and abandoned compounds. A place recently used but deliberately left dark.
"It's cold here."
When they reached the bottom, the flashlight beam spread across a room larger than he expected. Concrete walls, metal shelving, filing cabinets shoved into rows, boxes stacked neatly, not in the chaotic way of old storage, but intentionally organized. Someone worked down here, someone methodical, someone who cared about secrecy. Gage sniffed the floor, moving in slow circles. Then he froze beside a hook on the wall. Logan lifted the flashlight. A jacket hung there. Heavy wool. Military cut. Not his. Not anyone he'd known. Dust gathered along the sleeves, but not thick enough for years of abandonment. Logan swallowed hard and stepped closer. A name patch sat stitched inside the collar. Harold C. Bradley. He blinked once, twice, unable to force his mind to make sense of it. Bradley, the former mayor, missing 7 years, declared dead. Funeral held, case closed. Gage nudged the jacket, nose brushing the fabric. A low whine left him, quiet, but certain. The man didn't die. Logan whispered. He was here. He turned, sweeping the beam across the desk in the corner. Papers lay scattered as if someone had left in a hurry. A map of Briar Hollow, a list of parcel numbers, a half-written note. Then, unexpectedly, the beam caught something else. Footprints. Faint impressions in the dust on the concrete floor. Not fresh, but not old enough to fade completely. And they weren't alone. A second set of footprints trailed beside them. Smaller. The heel drag lighter. Someone else had been down here too. Someone who either followed Bradley or was following the same secret. Logan crouched, fingertips brushing the floor. Cold. Too cold for a room sealed underground. Suddenly, Gage lifted his head and barked, sharp and explosive, the sound ricocheting off the concrete. He stared up the stairs they'd just descended, muscles bunched, hackles high. Logan froze, breath caught in his chest. "What do you hear?" Gage stepped forward, a growl building in his throat, deepening the longer he stared into the dark corridor above. Then it happened. A soft thud from the floorboards overhead. Another. Slow, heavy, measured. Someone was in the house again. Logan turned off the flashlight instantly. Darkness swallowed them, thick and complete. He rested a steadying hand on Gage's back. The dog didn't tremble. He never did. They waited. The footsteps paused directly above the hidden stairwell, close enough that Logan could picture the floor flexing slightly under their weight, close enough that Gage's quiet growl vibrated against Logan's palm. Then the sound of metal scraping wood echoed from the front door upstairs. A lock turning, a door closing. Silence rushed in behind it. Only then did Logan breathe. He switched the flashlight on again, sweeping it across the jacket, the dusty floor, the footprints that had somehow become more sinister. Gage looked up at him, eyes calm and sure, as if speaking without a sound. "You wanted quiet," the dog seemed to say. "You got the truth instead." Logan nodded once, pulse still racing. "Let's get out of here." But as they climbed the narrow steps, he couldn't shake the feeling that the house had just revealed its first secret. And whatever waited next was no longer hiding. The basement no longer felt like a forgotten room beneath an abandoned mansion. It felt purposeful, like someone had carved it out to hide a second life beneath the first. Logan moved slowly between the filing cabinets, the flashlight trembling just enough for him to notice. He steadied it with a breath. Gage padded ahead of him, nose sweeping the floor in long, deliberate arcs. Every few steps, the dog paused, listening, tasting the air the way he once had on patrol in desert compounds. Logan hadn't seen that look in years. It made his stomach tighten. He opened the first drawer. Paper whispered against paper. Deeds, parcel numbers, old survey maps, all stamped with official county seals that looked real enough from a distance. But the signatures, the dates, the sloppy overlaps of ink told a different story. Fraud. Years of it. Logan sifted deeper. Most documents were organized with unnerving precision. Then he saw a folder set apart from the rest, bound with a rubber band that snapped the moment he touched it. Inside were maps of Briar Hollow's outer farmlands. Red circles marked certain areas, all traced back to the Waterfall ridge where this very house sat. Notes scribbled in the margins read things like hold for reassignment and reroute ownership. The handwriting was unfamiliar, messy, rushed. He pushed them aside and froze when he saw the next folder. His father's name on the tab. Miles Hart. Logan's breath stopped. He reached for it with a hand that felt suddenly foreign to him. The folder opened to survey sketches written in his father's tight, neat handwriting. Measurements, riverbed shifts, boundary lines drawn with an engineer's precision. His father had always been exact, almost rigid in how he worked. But at the bottom of one map was a note written in a different hand. Do not file. The next document contained his father's signature, looped and steady. Beneath it, someone had stamped it with a red mark that read, "Pending review," though the stamp wasn't from the county office he remembered visiting as a kid. He kept flipping. Another page. Hold. Another. Retain in private archive. Then one that made his throat close. Investigate witness. He sank onto the nearest metal stool, gripping the edge of the counter until it bit into his palms. His father wasn't a witness. He was a civil surveyor. A man who carried tape measures and notebooks, not secrets. Unless he saw something he wasn't supposed to. Gage nudged his leg gently. The dog's amber eyes were steady, waiting for him to understand. Logan swallowed hard, the air in his chest refusing to settle. "Dad didn't just die," he whispered. The memory came rushing back, sharp as broken glass. The way the sheriff had said the truck must have slid on loose gravel, how they found it near the old quarry, the closed casket funeral, the lack of investigation. Logan had chalked it up to rural law enforcement and grief, making everything feel unfinished. But this wasn't unfinished. It was covered. His hands shook as he leaned forward, forcing himself to keep reading. More deeds, more forged transfers, more land reassigned to companies that didn't exist. Every trail led back to the same signature. Harold C. Bradley. Mayor. Missing. Not dead. Not now. Not then. Gage suddenly stiffened, ears pricking hard toward the far corner of the room. "What is it?" The shepherd moved in a straight line toward a filing cabinet, shoved slightly away from the wall. Logan hadn't noticed the gap before. Gage sniffed along the side, then pawed once at the bottom drawer. Logan knelt, pulled the drawer open.
"Gage,
Inside,
what is it, boy?"
Beneath perfectly stacked folders, something was wrong. The dust pattern on the metal base had been disturbed. A clean rectangle sat where something had rested recently. Not months ago. Days. Maybe hours. Logan's skin prickled. Someone had removed something important. He ran his finger over the clean outline, judging the weight and size. Probably a binder or a thick folder. He could almost see the shape of it. Then his flashlight beam caught a smear along the inside of the drawer wall. A fingerprint, fresh enough to have moisture still trapped in the dust. He exhaled hard through his nose, the anger rising in him like heat. Someone had been here between the time the house was listed and when he arrived. Someone who hadn't bothered to cover their tracks well enough. Gage's body pressed gently against his side, grounding him, pulling him back before the frustration spiraled into something louder. Logan steadied his breath. He returned to the table and reached for another stack of documents, but his hand froze when he saw a photograph tucked beneath the corner of the maps. He pulled it out. It was old, edges frayed, colors faded. 3 men stood beside a county truck near a boundary fence. One of them was his father, smiling faintly, holding a map tube. Next to him stood a younger Harold Bradley. The third man stood, half-turned, face blurred by motion. Logan flipped the photo over. Survey meeting, March 1979. Do not distribute. His jaw clenched until pain shot through his temples. Years of believing his father's death had been bad luck now crumbled into dust around him. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't misfortune. It wasn't fate. Someone erased him, and someone wanted the truth buried under this house. Gage nudged his elbow again, harder this time. When Logan looked down, the dog's stance had changed. Body low, neck stretched towards the stairs. He listened. Above them, faint but real, a floorboard creaked. Then another, not settling. Not wind. Footsteps. Gage growled, deep and deliberate, the same sound he made when he scented danger behind a closed door overseas. Logan closed the folder slowly, breath sharp
Gage
and
found
controlled.
the secret room under the tree roots.
"We need to move," he whispered. But he knew something now, something that had already changed everything. This house wasn't just hiding files, it was hiding the truth about his father, and someone else knew he had finally found it. Night settled over the mansion in a way that didn't feel natural. The wind barely touched the trees, and the waterfall's roar below seemed distant, muffled, as if the world outside had stepped back and left the house to its own unease. Logan sat near the cold fireplace, the folder of his father's documents open beside him. Though he couldn't bring himself to read another word, Gage lay stretched forward, head up, ears angled sharply towards the ceiling. He hadn't relaxed once since they came back up from the basement. Logan could feel the tension radiating off him like heat. It happened fast. A thump overhead. Then the unmistakable slide of a door easing shut. Logan's body went rigid. His hand moved instinctively to his belt, forgetting he no longer carried a sidearm. His breath came tight and controlled, the way it had in countless sand-choked nights overseas when he woke to footsteps outside a tent. Gage was already on his feet, teeth bared, growl low enough to vibrate through the floor. Another creak above them, slow but deliberate. Someone was moving down the upstairs hallway. Logan whispered, "Stay." Gage didn't move from his place, but the air around him sharpened. Logan reached for the flashlight and switched it off. Darkness swallowed the room. A shadow passed across the crack under the upstairs landing. Not wind, not an animal, human weight. Logan crouched behind the stone hearth, muscles locked, breath shallow. Gage positioned himself between Logan and the staircase, body angled to confront whatever descended. Silence stretched. Then soft steps moved toward the top of the stairs. 1, 2. Then they stopped, as if the person sensed the tension waiting below. A long pause. Logan could feel Gage's readiness coiled tight, the same way he had before breaching compounds with Marines at his back. The intruder stepped back. Another soft step. Then another. Retreating. A faint metallic scrape sounded from the front door, a lock turning gently, as if not to announce departure. Then the click of the door closing. Stillness returned like a held breath released too slowly. Logan didn't move until Gage did. The dog approached the staircase, sniffed upward, then growled once, short and sharp, the kind of growl that meant he had memorized the scent. Whoever visited tonight had left a signature Gage would not forget. Logan felt the cold in his chest settle deeper. That wasn't some curious trespasser. Whoever came had moved with purpose, checking the second floor, not the downstairs rooms. They knew something about the house, maybe even about the basement. "We can't stay blind," he murmured. Gage nudged his hand, as if agreeing. By sunrise, Logan had made up his mind. He needed someone who understood corruption in Briar Hollow better than anyone. Someone who wasn't tied to the county sheriff or the courthouse. Someone who had nothing left to lose by telling the truth. Elise Monroe. He had read her work years ago, back when she was the only reporter brave enough to call out the former mayor's questionable land deals. Her exposés had nearly cost her her career. He loaded the folders into the truck, and Gage hopped in without needing a command, settling into the passenger seat with eyes already fixed outward. Watchful. Tense. The drive into town felt too quiet. At the edge of the main road, Logan spotted a black sedan parked where sightlines were clean. Not local. Too new. Too sleek. As he passed, the reflection in the tinted window flickered, as if someone inside turned slightly. He kept driving, pretending not to see it. Elisa's office sat above an antique store whose sign creaked in the breeze. Logan climbed the narrow steps, folder under his arm. Gage followed close, brushing his leg at each turn. Elise looked up from her cluttered desk the moment the door opened. She had sharp eyes, the kind that missed nothing and trusted no one. "You're not from the paper," she said. "No." Then why do you look like you're carrying something that could blow a hole in this county? Logan set the folder down. Because I am. She opened it carefully. One glance at the forged deeds wiped the casual curiosity from her face. She flipped to the next page, saw the handwritten notes. The next, and saw his father's name. Where did you get these? Logan hesitated. Then he said the truth. Behind a hidden wall in the old house above the falls. Elise froze. Her eyes lifted to his with a kind of stunned recognition. You bought that place? The stone mansion? 50 cents. She let out a breath that wasn't quite laughter. That place isn't worth a penny unless you're looking for ghosts. I didn't find ghosts, he said. I found my father's signature. Her expression softened just slightly, then hardened again as she flipped deeper into the documents. This isn't one scandal. This is decades of them. Bradley, the council, the land commission. Half the county grew rich by burying families who didn't know they were being robbed. She pulled out a deed, tapped a forged signature. This is from the year your father disappeared. Died. Logan corrected. Elise looked him in the eye. No, disappeared. That case was closed. Too fast, too quiet. Everybody knew it. Nobody could prove it. Gage suddenly rose from his place by the door, nose angled at the window. His tail stiffened.
It's cold here.
Logan moved to the glass and peered between the blinds. The black sedan was parked across the street now. Closer. Elise swallowed. They don't move that fast unless someone rattled a cage. Logan grabbed the folder. Then we rattled the right one. Gage was already at the door, body angled, waiting. Elise closed her laptop, grabbed her coat. If they know you found this house's secrets, they won't stop. He nodded. Then let's not give them the chance. As they descended the stairs, Logan felt something harden inside him. The intruder last night hadn't been a warning. It had been an introduction. Someone was watching. Someone was waiting. And now someone knew he wasn't alone anymore. Gage brushed against his leg as they stepped into the morning light. The shepherd's presence steady and grounding. The kind of loyalty a man could build a war around. Logan tightened his grip on the folder. This time, he wasn't backing away. The drive back to the stone mansion was silent, except for the crunch of gravel under the tires and the low growl occasionally rising in Gage's throat. He sat upright in the back seat beside the folders, not resting, not blinking much, scanning each tree line they passed as if calculating unseen angles. Elise watched him through the rearview mirror, eyebrows pinched with respect rather than fear. That dog is reading the land like it's a battlefield, she murmured. Logan didn't answer. He felt it too. The tension in Gage's posture was never wrong. By the time they reached the house, dusk had thinned into a dim blue haze, the waterfall's roar echoing like distant thunder. Logan stepped out first. Gage jumped down a second later and froze with his nose pointed toward the porch. Then he growled. Deep. Warning. What is it? Elise whispered. Gage moved forward slowly, paws silent on the stone path. He sniffed near the porch stair, then lowered his head so sharply it startled them both. Logan crouched beside him, tracing the dog's line of sight. A thin fishing line stretched just above the first step, almost invisible unless the light hit it just right. It connected to a small metal device tucked behind the porch beam. Logan exhaled sharply. Alarm tripper. Not explosive, just loud. Someone wanted to flush us outward? Or scare you off? Elise said softly. Gage stepped back and huffed once, insulted more than frightened. Logan clipped the line, pocketing the device. His pulse had shifted into the mode he thought he left overseas. Someone was escalating. Inside the house was cold. Too cold for early evening. The air carried a faint chemical bite. Gage stalked straight to the kitchen, tail pointed like an arrow. He skidded once, then pressed his nose to the stove's back panel. Logan smelled it before he saw it. Gas. Faint but unmistakable. He lunged toward the shutoff valve, twisting it hard until the hiss died. Elise covered her mouth, face pale. "This isn't intimidation anymore," Logan said quietly. Gage nudged the stove, then turned toward the window. Scratch marks lined the sill. Someone had tampered with the line from outside, then left. Precise. Quick. Confident. "They know this house," Elise whispered. "Or they know you're in it." An unease rooted itself in Logan's spine. He looked at Gage, whose ears were pinned in a focus he rarely saw outside combat zones. The shepherd paced once around the kitchen, then trotted back to Logan, pressing his head against Logan's thigh. Not reassurance. Urgency. "We need to move fast," Logan said. He pulled the dining table to the center of the room, spread out every document they had found. Elise dropped into a chair and opened her laptop. The oil lamp flickered as she scanned files, muttering dates and cross-referencing company names. Logan sorted deeds. Gage lay between them, chin on his paws, eyes never leaving the doorway. Hours passed. The sky outside darkened into pitch. Then Elise tensed. "Hold on." Logan leaned over her shoulder. She pointed to a margin note scribbled on a memo from the late 70s. He hadn't noticed it earlier. A barely legible line read, "All retrieved. Site B confirmed." And below it, in different handwriting, "Operative assets
Gage
approved
found
for
a
cleanup."
secret room under the tree roots.
Logan felt something cold settle in his chest. "Cleanup?" Elise whispered. "That isn't clerical language. That's covert ops language." Logan's jaw tightened. "They took my father out there." Gage suddenly rose from the floor, nails clicking. He walked to the end of the table and stared at the old paper map unfolded beneath scattered deeds. His nose hovered, searching. Then he pressed one paw firmly on a point near the eastern ridge. Elise blinked. "Is he pointing?" Logan's voice came out low. He's done it before. In Ramadi, he once marked a buried pressure plate nobody else could detect. Gage pushed again, paw scraping the map until it stopped on a name printed near the waterfall. Briar Quarry. Logan looked closer. The decommissioned quarry lay half a mile east of the mansion, exactly the spot where an old landslide had supposedly occurred the week his father died. Elise's pulse quickened. That's it. That's Site B. The waterfall outside boomed louder, as if punctuating the discovery. Logan felt the house shift under the weight of the truth. My dad wasn't just a surveyor with bad luck. He whispered. He found something he wasn't supposed to. Elise tapped the documents, and they used the quarry to erase the evidence. Maybe even the witnesses. Gage growled, low and certain, as if he already knew this. Logan knelt beside him, placing a hand on the shepherd's neck. Gage's muscles were taut, his gaze locked not on the door, but on the direction of the quarry beyond the walls, beyond the trees, beyond the waterfall. "You want us to go there?" Logan said softly. Gage looked at him with the kind of clarity that made Logan feel like the dog understood every word. Oof. Elise whispered, "If Site B holds what I think it does, then Bradley isn't just corrupt. He's dangerous, and he knows you're close." A sudden metallic rattle cut her off. All three froze. It came from the side door, a knob turning, someone testing it, just once. Then silence. Gage stood in a single fluid motion, body angled, teeth visible. Elise's voice trembled. "They're not waiting anymore. They're pushing us." Logan didn't blink. "Good. Then we push back." He grabbed the map, the deeds, and the memo. Elise slammed her laptop shut. Gage moved to the front, already in position, every line of his body drawn tight with purpose. Logan felt the fear in his chest
knew.
transform into something sharper. Resolve. Anger. Truth. Tomorrow morning? He said, looking at the quarry marked beneath Gage's paw. We go to Site B. Gage's tail thumped once. Deliberate. A soldier's answer. By the fourth night without real sleep,
Gage,
the
what
stone
is it,
mansion
boy?
felt less like a refuge and more like a pressure chamber. Every draft in the hallway, every soft pop of the old wooden beams hit Logan with the same jolt he used to feel right before an ambush. The waterfall outside roared, but inside the house everything
This is
was too
Site B.
quiet. Suffocatingly quiet. Elise sat hunched at the kitchen table, pages spread around her in a chaotic ring. She had stopped speaking hours ago, reading and rereading the same lines until her eyes looked numb. Gage lay near the hallway, chin on his paws, ears flicking at every distant sound. He hadn't fully relaxed since they uncovered Site B on the map. Logan stood near the front window, staring out at the empty road. The sky was the color of bruised steel, horizon swallowed in fog. They know where we are, he said suddenly, not turning around. They want us boxed in here. Elise didn't answer. She knew he wasn't talking to her. Logan's fingers drummed anxiously on the window frame. I shouldn't have stayed. This was a mistake from the beginning. Gage lifted his head. Logan kept talking, voice shaking. I thought buying some old house for 50 cents would give me peace, a new start. But this... His breath caught. He pressed both hands to the windowsill, knuckles white. I can't breathe in this place anymore. Elise stood slowly. Logan. He stepped back from the window, rubbing his hands over his face. When he dropped them, he looked 10 years older. The war had left its fingerprints on him before, but now it was dragging him backward into a place he thought he'd outrun. Every corner of this house feels like someone's aiming at me, like I'm back in Fallujah, waiting for the next blast. I keep hearing footsteps. I keep thinking people are watching. Gage rose to his feet. Logan's voice cracked. I can't do this. I'm not him. I'm not my father. I can't end up buried out by some quarry like a dog nobody mourns. His chest heaved. He turned toward the door. I'm leaving. Tonight. Before they come for me, too. He grabbed his jacket, shoveled some documents into his backpack without caring which ones. Elise
Gage
reached
found
out
the secret
instinctively.
room under the tree roots.
Logan, wait. But he had already swung the front door open. The cold air rushed in, carrying the sharp scent of pine and river spray. He stepped forward and stopped, because Gage was standing in the doorway. The German shepherd had moved so silently. Neither of them saw him cross the room. He stood perfectly still, body squared, head high, eyes locked on Logan with an intensity that pierced straight through the panic. Logan swallowed. Move, buddy. Gage didn't blink. I mean it. Move. Nothing. Not a twitch. Logan took a small step left. Gage mirrored him. He stepped right. Gage blocked that too. Finally, Logan's voice broke. Don't do this. I can't fight this. I can't. Gage didn't growl, didn't bark. He simply looked at him. The same way he had looked at Logan in Iraq the night Logan wanted to break protocol and run toward a burning Humvee. The night Gage stood in his path, refusing to let him die for nothing. It was the look that said, if you walk out to run, I'm not going with you. If you walk out to fight, I'll follow you anywhere. Logan's throat tightened until words could barely pass. Buddy, please. I don't want to end up like him. He sank to his knees. Gage stepped forward and pressed his forehead gently into Logan's chest. The contact was simple, but it hit harder than a scream. Logan curled his hands into the dog's fur, grounding himself against the tremor in his lungs. The house felt like it tilted around him, the fear unwinding into something raw. I'm scared, he whispered. I haven't admitted that in years, not even to myself. I'm terrified this truth is going to swallow me whole the way it swallowed my father. Gage held steady, unmoving, ears tucked just slightly back in a soft show of empathy. Elise watched quietly from behind, her hand over her mouth. She had seen grief. She had seen trauma. But she had never seen a man unravel and rebuild in the same breath because of one silent animal refusing to abandon him. Logan took a shaky breath. If I run now, I run the rest of my life. That what you're telling me? Gage lifted his head and looked him in the eyes. Calm, steady, certain. Logan let out a broken laugh, wiped his face, and pulled himself up. Okay, we stay. We finish this. Gage's tail brushed the floor once, slow and resolute. Elise stepped closer. Logan, are you sure? He straightened, shoulders squared. For the first time in days, he looked like a soldier again. Not a hunted man. Yeah, he said. But not because I'm brave. He placed a hand on Gage's neck. Because he won't let me be a coward. The house seemed to breathe with them. The air shifted. Something inside Logan settled into place. Not peace, but direction. He closed the door gently, locking it. Not out of fear this time, but commitment. Tomorrow they would go to the quarry. Tonight they had chosen their side. And they had chosen it together. The abandoned quarry rose out of the morning fog like a scar carved into the earth. The roar of the waterfall nearby echoed against the limestone walls, a steady low thunder that swallowed smaller sounds. It was the same place the county claimed had collapsed in a freak rock slide the year Logan's father died. Standing at its edge now, Logan felt the air shift in his chest, heavy and familiar, like approaching a grave you never got to visit. Gage moved first. Not trotting, not exploring, tracking. His posture sharpened the moment his paws hit the gravel. Nose low, tail out, body taut as wire. Elise followed close, clutching her recorder and a small camera. She wasn't talking. This wasn't an interview anymore. It was evidence retrieval. Logan kept his hand near the knife strapped to his belt. Firearms were off the table. Too loud, too risky to carry without a permit. But a blade was quiet, and he knew how to use it. Gage led them down the broken path along the quarry's rim until they reached a rusted service ladder. Logan tested the first rung. It held. I'll go first, he said. Gage goes next. Elise, you follow. If anything feels wrong, you climb back up and call for help. Elise's breath fogged the air. You really think someone might still be watching this place? Logan gave her a look that didn't need translation. Gage descended the ladder almost like he remembered training from another life. He didn't slip, didn't hesitate, just followed Logan straight into the half-collapsed pit. The quarry floor smelled of damp stone and rust. The waterfall mist drifted in gentle waves, coating everything in silver droplets. Gage stopped at the entrance of a narrow fault in the rock. A natural crack widened by machinery decades earlier. His ears pitched forward. There. Logan crouched, running his hand along the moss-softened stone. The crack was just big enough for a person to slide through sideways. He shone a flashlight into the gap. The beam disappeared into darkness. He looked at Gage. You sure? The shepherd lifted one paw, touching the stone lightly, then looked straight up into Logan's eyes. Absolute certainty, that was enough. Logan squeezed inside first, scraping his jacket on jagged rock. The passage opened into a cramped cavern reinforced with old timbers. Dust glittered in the flashlight beam. Then something metallic reflected from the corner. Logan stepped closer. His heart lurched. A military-grade lockbox, half buried under debris. Gage barked once, sharp, cutting through the suffocating stillness. Logan knelt and brushed dirt from the top. The initials stamped into the steel hit him like a punch. M.H. Miles' heart. His breath trembled. He forced the latch open. Inside was everything the town had pretended didn't exist. Survey reports, photos of land seizures, signed confessions, a ledger listing payouts to county officials, and at the bottom, a folded sheet of yellowed paper in his father's handwriting. If you're reading this, it means I failed to stop them. Don't let the truth die here. Trust the dog. He knows the way out. Logan felt the ground tilt underneath him. Elise held her breath as she snapped photos. Gage moved again, faster now, circling the chamber. His nails scraped rock, echoing against the walls. His tail stiffened. Logan turned. "What is it, boy?" A faint sound drifted in. A soft crunch of gravel. Footsteps. Very slow. Measured. Coming from the entrance they had used. Elise's eyes widened. Someone followed us. Logan killed the flashlight. Instantly, the chamber fell into darkness, so complete, it felt underwater. Gage stiffened, body aligned with the sound, every muscle ready. A shadow slid across the narrow gap in the wall. A beam of light appeared. Someone was sweeping a flashlight through the crack, searching. Logan whispered, barely audible. "Stay behind me. Elise, get low." The intruder stepped inside. His movements were practiced, controlled. He knew this quarry. He knew this cave. Logan recognized the silhouette only when the man whispered into a radio. "Unit 3. They're here. A hired man. Not Bradley. Not yet." Gage growled, the sound low enough to blend into the waterfall's distant thunder. The man swung the flashlight toward the sound. Too slow. Gage launched forward, silent until impact. The man's shout echoed against the stone as Gage clamped onto his forearm, dragging him off balance.
He knew.
Logan rushed in, knocking the flashlight aside and pinning the man's wrist to the ground. The knife clattered across the rock. "Drop it!" Logan hissed. The man spat. "You don't know what you're stepping into. That house isn't yours. It never was." Logan pressed harder.
What is it, boy?
"Say Bradley sent you." The man's jaw clenched, muscles vibrating with defiance. Gage snarled, jaws tightening. "Fine. The mayor wants his files back. Alive or dead doesn't matter." Elise gasped. Logan didn't blink.
This is Site B.
"And my father?" The man hesitated, then gave the smallest, cruelest smile. "Loose ends get cut." Logan's throat burned. Gage growled louder, vibrating against Logan's leg. Logan yanked the man's radio and slammed it against the rock, shattering it. "We're leaving. Now." "How?" Elise whispered. "The way we came." "No, that's where he entered. Someone else will be waiting." He looked at Gage. "Find us a path out." The dog didn't hesitate. He sprinted deeper into the cavern, past the collapsed timbers, toward the faint rumble of the waterfall. Logan hauled Elise to her feet, grabbing the lockbox as he ran. Behind them, the man groaned, reaching for his weapon. Gage barked urgently, "This way!" They emerged through a narrow fissure that opened behind the waterfall's curtain. Mist hit their faces like cold needles. The roar drowned every other sound. Elise stared in disbelief. A hidden exit. Logan shouted over the water. "My dad wasn't running when he died. He was leading someone away. This was his escape route." They climbed along the slippery rock ledge, hugging the wall as the water crashed beside them. Gage moved with impossible balance, guiding them toward a ridge that sloped into the forest. Only when they reached the tree line did Logan finally stop and look back. The quarry lay under a shroud of fog again. Silent, but no longer empty. Logan placed a hand on Gage's back. "You knew the way because he trained you for it, didn't he?" The dog looked up, eyes steady, as if answering. Elise pressed a hand to her mouth. "Logan, your father didn't just hide evidence. He died protecting the path to it." Logan opened the lockbox again, staring at the files, his father's handwriting. The truth preserved in steel and dirt. This was the moment he'd been running from. Now there was no place left to run. He closed the box.
Gage found the
We
secret
finished
room
this.
under the tree roots.
Gage exhaled, a soft, affirming sound. The same way he had beside Logan in every battle that mattered. The final fight was no longer a mystery. It was a direction. The story broke at 6:14 a.m. Elise didn't send it to a small-town paper. She sent it to a regional outlet with a reputation for refusing to bury uncomfortable truths. By sunrise, it had already been picked up by 3 national feeds. The headline was simple, but it hit like a hammer. Buried records, buried men, and the town that tried to forget. Logan read it standing in the doorway of the stone mansion, the waterfall's mist drifting behind him like ghost breath. His hands shook slightly as he scrolled. Not from fear now. From something heavier, stranger. Vindication, grief, relief, all braided into one. Inside, Gage paced once, tail low but steady, as if even he could feel the shift in the air. By mid-morning, the town had erupted. Not with anger, with recognition, with memory, with courage long deferred. The first person to arrive was an elderly man with a paper envelope held tight to his chest. He didn't introduce himself, just stared at Logan, eyes wet, and whispered, "My family lost 70 acres in '89. They said my father signed it away. He didn't. I can prove it." He handed the envelope to Logan, nodded once, then turned and walked back to his truck. He was the first, but not the last. By noon, nearly a dozen people stood along the gravel driveway, each carrying folders, dusty binders, and boxes that looked like they hadn't been opened since the Clinton administration. They came quietly, reverently, almost like approaching a memorial. Some held documents tight, as if they feared they might disappear if they let go. Others placed them down gently on the porch, whispering, "For my brother, for my dad, for all of us who were told to keep quiet." Logan stepped aside for each one, overwhelmed. Elise recorded their testimonies with trembling hands, realizing the investigation she thought was contained to a corrupt mayor had just widened into something far deeper. Inside the house, the collection of evidence grew across the floor like a rising tide. Land deeds, forced signatures, threat letters, maps, old cassette tapes containing confessions. Every piece a fracture in a 30-year lie. Through it all, Gage stayed close to Logan, weaving between legs, sniffing boxes, occasionally resting his head against someone's knee as if giving silent permission to let the truth out. A little girl, maybe 8 years old, knelt and hugged, him around the neck. She whispered, "My grandpa said a dog saved him once when he tried to stand up to the wrong people. Was that you?" Gage stayed perfectly still, then nudged her cheek gently. Her mother covered her mouth, tears gathering. "My father worked with yours," she told Logan softly. He always said Miles' heart wasn't scared of Bradley, and that was why he didn't make it home.
This is Site B.
Logan swallowed hard. Words failed him. For the first time since the house became his, he didn't feel alone in its walls. He felt backed. He felt seen. He felt connected to something larger than the ache he had carried since childhood. By late afternoon, Elise's follow-up article had already gone live. The former mayor, Harold C. Bradley, was officially wanted for questioning. 3 county officials were placed on administrative leave. State investigators were en route. The town's silence cracked open. Truth spread like fresh air through a suffocating room. Logan stepped onto the porch. The waterfall roared behind him, the sunlight catching the mist until it glowed like molten silver. Dozens of townspeople stood scattered across the yard, not angry, not afraid, hopeful, determined. He looked down at Gage, who sat beside him with the quiet composure of a soldier who had seen too much but never left his post. "This is you," Logan murmured. "You did this." Gage blinked slowly. Logan's chest tightened, not with fear this time, but gratitude so deep it hurt. He remembered his father's voice, the one sentence he could never forget. Truth doesn't die. It just gets blocked for a while, sometimes for years, sometimes by men who would rather burn the world than be exposed. But it always finds a way back. Today it found its way back through a dog who refused to let a son forget what a father started. Elise stepped onto the porch, breathless from typing updates. "Logan, people are calling this the biggest corruption case in the county's history. They want to interview you tonight." He shook his head. Interview the people who lived it. Interview the families who were pushed off their land. Interview the ones who carried this weight for decades. Elise smiled softly. "What about him?" She nodded toward Gage, the dog who wouldn't let you walk away. Logan crouched and placed both hands on Gage's fur, the shepherd leaning into the touch.
Gage found the
gets the
secret
credit.
room under the tree roots.
All of it. Gage lifted his head proudly. Behind them, a pickup arrived. An older woman stepped out holding a metal lunchbox. She approached slowly, voice trembling. "Your father gave this to me the night before he disappeared. He told me to keep it until the right person asked for the truth." She placed the lunchbox into Logan's hands. "I think he meant you." Logan opened it. Inside were handwritten notes, a tape recorder, and an old photo of Miles Hart leaning beside the stone mansion, smiling just a little, like he knew something worth protecting. Logan closed his eyes. For the first time in 30 years, the grief felt lighter, reshaped by purpose. Around him, the town exhaled, and at his side, Gage waited, silent, steady, the living reminder that loyalty can drag truth out of the deepest ground. 1 year later, the 50-cent stone mansion looked nothing like the place Logan first stepped into. The cracked gravel drive was still there, the waterfall still roared at its back, but the heart of it had changed. The house no longer belonged to secrecy. It belonged to memory. A carved wooden sign hung at the gate, sanded smooth and stained a warm oak tone. Hart Center for Justice and Veterans Archives. People came from 3 counties to walk its creaking floors, to study the files that had once been buried in dirt and fear. Veterans came to sit on the porch and talk to someone who understood the weight of silence. Families came to find their names restored. And every morning, without fail, Gage lay on the front steps like an old sentinel carved from fur and bone. His muzzle had gone silver, his gait slower, but his eyes were still sharp enough to cut through a lie. He watched everything, the fields, the path, the thundering lip of the waterfall, as if guarding not just the house, but the truth it carried. That afternoon, a school bus rumbled up the drive. A group of 7th graders spilled out, notebooks in hand, shepherded by a teacher who looked slightly overwhelmed by the mansion's size. Logan stepped onto the porch, hands in his pockets. His hair had grown longer, his voice softer. But there was a steadiness in him now, the kind that only comes when a man has stopped running from his own history. The kids approached in a cluster. Some stared at the waterfall. Others pointed at Gage. One girl raised her hand. "Sir, can we ask about the dog first?" Logan smiled. Always. They gathered around Gage, who tolerated the attention with a regal calm that only old working dogs truly master. One boy sat cross-legged beside him. Is it true he found the secret room? The one no one else could find? Logan nodded. Every word of it. Another girl asked, "Why him? Why not the police? Or the investigators? Or even you?" Logan crouched beside Gage. He rested a hand gently on the shepherd's aging shoulder. "You want the real reason?" They nodded eagerly. "Because he wasn't looking for danger," Logan said quietly. He barked for something else. The kids leaned closer. What? The truth everyone else ignored. For a moment, even the waterfall seemed to soften its voice. He saved lives overseas. Logan continued. Saved mine more than once, but here, he did something even harder. He dug up what men tried to bury for 30 years. He didn't do it for glory, or credit, or revenge. Logan scratched behind Gage's ear. He did it because loyalty doesn't retire. The kids scribbled notes, wide-eyed. One asked if Gage still worked. Logan chuckled. Work, no. Watch, always. As if on cue, Gage lifted his head, ears flicking toward the forest line. Nothing moved there, but the instinct had never left him. Logan rested a steadying hand on his back. Easy, partner. This place is safe now. But Gage still watched, still guarded, because some promises outlive the battles they were made in. One student raised her hand again. Mr. Hart, do you ever wish you hadn't bought this house? Logan looked at the mansion, at the porch rebuilt from salvaged timber, at the waterfall mist hugging the air, at the old dog who had dragged him out of fear and into purpose. No, he said softly. This house cost me 50 cents, but it gave me the truth my father died trying to protect, and it gave me the chance to finish what he started. He paused. His voice warmed. It gave me him. The tour ended as the sun dipped low, painting the cliffs gold. The kids climbed aboard the bus, waving goodbye. The teacher thanked Logan twice. When the engine faded into the distance, the quiet returned. Peaceful now, not haunted. Logan lowered himself to sit beside Gage on the porch. The old shepherd rested his head against Logan's thigh. We did good, didn't we? Logan murmured. Gage huffed in contentment, tail tapping once against the wood. Logan looked out toward the waterfall, the place where everything had begun, where Gage had first signaled the hidden truth beneath their feet. My dad used to say truth doesn't die, it just gets blocked for a while. He glanced down at Gage. You were the one who broke the blockade. The last of the sunlight slipped behind the ridge. The house glowed warm behind them. Spring wind rustled the pines. Logan let the moment settle before speaking again, this time to whoever might be listening across time and distance. If you're hearing this story, remember something. Heroes don't always carry rifles. Sometimes they carry scars, sometimes they carry silence.
It's cold here.
And sometimes they carry a tale that never stops guarding your shadow. He placed a hand on Gage's chest, feeling the steady heartbeat beneath thinning fur. So let me ask you one last question. What's your story with a loyal pet? If this one moved you, share it. Because loyalty deserves a voice. And here at German Shepherd Stories, we tell every voice worth hearing.